about?
That's playoff basketball.
There's no defense for speed and pace. There's no defense for pace.
There's no defense.
Y'all literally just gave me flowers for it. That's all I did.
Well, it's a different game though.
No, it's not. It's the same game.
Somebody that didn't do it.
How I used to get on the top. How did me and Tony Douglas get into it? Because I told him, dog, you did all this at Florida State. You was all in my handle and shit my freshman year. I remember that shit.
Yeah.
Don't go out here and let Pooh go out here and just dance. Yeah. No, we're not doing that, bro. No, because now you're telling me I suck.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm like, bro, I'm not able to stop this man in practice because I'm the greatest. Right. No, nigga, I watched that much Melo footage. I knew you was gonna do that, bro.
Yeah.
You work on that.
Yeah.
You work. You shot 100 of these after practice. You think I don't think you finna go over your left shoulder? Fuck that thing. You going over your left shoulder. You need a bucket. Like, what are you talking about?
Was that a moment?
Jab, step, spin. Like, I know it's coming. He's steady doing it. He'll shove you foul. No, nigga, I know the ball's gonna be there. Your hand part of it.
So, obviously, Shump said a lot in that little in that little tidbit right there, right? And you know, a lot of people talk about defense in the NBA nowadays. I feel like there's typically two things that people want to point out, right? It's effort and it's pride, right? Those are typically the two things that the media or people want to call out when it comes to defense in the modern NBA, right? But in what Shumper was talking about right here, the other key part is, do they study? Are they prepared for these matchups? And something that he was able to say so eloquently right there in such a little bit of time, right? He talks about he wasn't stopping Carmelo Anthony, who's one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen, right? Carmelo Anthony was a bully basketball type of player, but was also really skilled. And you could kill me for this if you want, but, you know, when he was getting compared to LeBron, right? At 6'8" and the size that Carmelo Anthony was, he never had the physique that LeBron had. But he had the ball on a string for his size. Had the hezzy pull. I mean, he had all of it, right? Like a guard. And so he was tough to defend for anyone. And Iman Shumpert in this clip is talking about his ability to play defense on one of the greatest players, one of the greatest offensive players ever, wasn't because he was necessarily a great defensive player. Shocking, right? But it was because he knew what Carmelo Anthony was going to do. He did tape. He studied. He watched. And that's how he approached all of the players. Right? When people talk about the viral clip that he had talking about the Kobe Bryant game, which he talks about in this podcast again, when in the fourth quarter, Kobe taps him going into the fourth and he says, "Good game, young fella." And Shump was confused. He's like, the game's over? Right? That story. But one thing that I remember from that clip that Shumpert talks about is Kobe had a go-to move, but he had a counter for that go-to move if you try to stop it. And if you try to stop the second thing, he has a counter for that, and had damn near 3, 4, 5 counters. That's how he built his game out. And Shump said, well, after 2 or 3, you're like, what the fuck? And that comes with film and studying. So when it comes to the defense in the NBA, that's really something that I wonder about for real. You know, there was the Anthony Davis clip from a long time ago talking about Did I say Anthony Davis? Anthony Edwards coming into the NBA talking about he didn't like to watch film, right? He didn't like to watch film. And, that was a viral thing. And like I said, I really do wonder if that's the case. And the reason being, when you watch a basketball game, I feel like you and I can kind of tell when certain players are going to do certain moves, when they're going to pull up, when they're not going to pull up, depending on what side they're on, what ball the hand is in. All of these little things that we kind of pick up just from watching the game. Sometimes it feels like these guys don't pick up on. And, if it's funny because I'm going to refer to a video game right now, but even in a video game like NBA 2K, and we'll take a look at this in just a second, right? Look at how accurate look at how accurate they get all of the moves, right? Let's take a look at this.
Open next time. Jayson Tatum.
That's Jayson Tatum, obviously.
Tatum takes it.
The step backs.
Doncic telling Bertans get out of the way. Step back,
Luka
high
pull.
arcing three. It's good.
Will have a foul to give when they're defending. And here is Luka. Rhythm dribble.
Rotation. Be productive for us.
Play multiple positions. They'll play him some at the three.
And, something like that, right? Where you almost wonder, right? Did the NBA 2K staff do more film study than some of these players? Like, for real. Because they don't only have the dribbles or the mannerisms, right? Which is something that a lot of people want to talk about. But they have the rhythm, they have the pace that these players do it at, which shows a lot of film time and study. And to the players that want to say, oh, well, why don't you go defend so-and-so and so-and-so? Cool. You could feel that way all you want. Show me how much time you've logged in physically watching film. Not with the team, watching film. Because a huge part of confidence, right, is knowing what's coming in, right? The only reason you would feel unconfident in a situation is if you're unprepared, if you didn't do your homework, if you didn't study, if you didn't prepare. And a lot of these guys go to the same moves. I mean, this is the way basketball has been played for forever, right? Like, people have their signature go-to moves that they like to go to. When it's time to get a bucket, right? Sean was talking about Melo. When it's time to get a bucket, you do this fake. I know you're not going that way. I know you're not going that way. Like when it comes to Luka, for example, right? In any game winner that Luka has, right? Let me see if we can pull it up here. He does this shit all the time, right? He does this move all the time, right?
Doncic telling Bertans get out of the way.
He does that move all the time. And what do you always see? The player always backs up, right? Why don't you stay there and force him to go right? Force him to go right. Force him to do something that he doesn't typically do. Force him to go right in that situation and shoot a fall away going to the right. Not the step back. Try to see if he could do it on a 2 dribble pull up, on a 1 dribble pull up. There was a game that Jamal Crawford was calling with Luka Doncic, and he called exactly the move Luka was gonna do. That's film. That's study. Now, Great players are going to make great plays. Like I just said with Kobe, he had counters to everything. Luka is going to have a counter. But force him into the second, third, fourth option of his. The second, third, fourth shot. The one that he doesn't pull out as much. Pause. I feel like too often we see guys getting into these same rhythm shots, right? Like this Tatum one. How often? If you watch a Boston Celtics game, right? If you watch a Boston Celtics game, how often are you going to see Jayson Tatum hit this shot, whether he shoots it or not? How often?
Tatum takes it.
How often?
Not just.
And like I said, great players are going to make great plays at the end of the day. But I do question how studious these guys really are, right? And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what they say about the internet nowadays, right? Well, what do they say about the internet? That we're in the golden age of information. We're in the internet. And, you know, they say everything is at the touch of your fingers, right? Is at the touch of your hand. Everything is right there for you. You can look anything up. You could Google anything. YouTube University is a real thing. People become pros and masters at stuff because of YouTube, right? Yet and still, how many times do you hear about people who don't do their due diligence? People who see a headline and don't click on the article. Who see something and don't fact check it. That's how we get fake news. That's how we get people who form entire opinions off of a caption on Instagram. Sometimes they'll have the link right there and people still won't click it. Just because the access to the information is there and it's easier than it's ever been, doesn't mean that people use it. And I think it's very possible that a similar thing is happening in the NBA, right? All of this information is there. All of it. Whether they want to get it through their team, whether they want to find the videos online themselves, whether they want to contact a retired pro, whoever. If you're an NBA player, your resources when it comes to basketball is almost unlimited. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they use it. And when it comes to film study and working on these things outside of the team stuff, how many guys are really doing that? Right? How many guys are actually putting in the extra time to study? And granted, I feel like, you know, people are probably putting in the time on their step backs, getting extra shots up, which is cool. But the other part of the game where you have to think it through